Welcome to a beautiful spring day. It's the 10th day of June, in case you wondered. A great Thursday. I hope it's a great day for you. I hope you find a lot of blessings in it. And, as I say, I'm glad you're with me. And come on into my little world for just a moment. Let me get very personal, if I could. I'm going to, so I don't know why I asked permission. My parents were Texans and my grandparents were Texans. I wasn't. I'm not. But I was born to people who were Texans. They were always proud of the fact that they were from Texas, and I guess people ought to be proud of their home state, home country, whatever it might be. I've been to the places where they were born. I've seen them, recognized them. Nothing all that unusual about them. But to them, they were home. My grandfather thought that the only place a person ought to want to live was in Nolan County, Texas. He loved it there, spent his whole life pretty much within a very small area, and didn't very often travel far from it. He did go to France during World War I. There, this young man who came from a pretty limited, very limited background, became a truck driver and drove trucks, ferried ammunition and soldiers around during World War I. I don't know whether he actually did any fighting or not. He never really talked much about it, but he did have the experience of going that far. Anyway, but going back to his hometown, his home state, it became very important to him. I remember one occasion when my wife and I were visiting with them. We were down at a place south of where they lived, about 30, 40 miles south of where they lived, and just driving around in the rugged countryside there of West Texas, about 30, 40 miles south of Sweetwater, and we drove across a certain area, and my grandmother said, "Okay, now pull up over here a little bit." We were on a back dirt road. We pulled over a ways, and she pointed out into a field where there were a few mesquite trees along the way, and she said, "Right over about there. Right over about there." And I said, "What? Right over about there?" She said, "That's where they were." And I said, "Who?" And he said, "That's where your grandfather's parents pulled up. They settled there, built a lean-to, when my grandfather was just a little bitty baby, almost newborn. And there they spent the first year or so of their time as they settled into that West Texas country, and thus it became his home. He grew up down there, along close to and what they call the divide, where the creeks went one way and then another. Lived there most of his life, ended up working for the Santa Fe Railroad. But if you talk about people from Texas, then they must be good. Politicians who came from Texas, they were bound to be good men that history would love. Heroes that fought or died in Texas, they were great men. Even with my parents, we traveled about Texas many times. We visited all the important places that they could find. Thought it was a great place to be. We went to the Alamo and thought about the heroes that died there. We visited the plains of San Jacinto where Houston won a great victory. We were at Goliad and a few other places along the way. Anyway, we visited those places and we told stories, or they did. And we remembered the history, and they talked about the past. And my grandfather would talk about family. He would talk about things that happened, but mostly he just talked about home. I'm glad he did. I've never lived in Texas, only visited there. I still got family who lives in Texas. They're special people, and they love it where they are. And I guess they should. But they provide for us reminders. They provide for us reminders of things that have gone by. Memories of things past that we didn't even live to see, but things that were presented to us. Special events. The things that help bring us to where we are, that present to us the present, and give us the opportunities to grab hold of not only the present, but even the future. That's what we get from the past. I got to say, and it's on a personal note, that I'm thankful that my parents were from Texas and told me about the things that were there. You may not like Texas. I don't really care. You may come from a totally different part of the country and think it's the best place in the world. Good for you. I've lived in Oklahoma for, well, let's leave the number of years out, but all but the first 2 years of my life. It's a pretty good place to call home. Even places I didn't think would be that great, they've become very special. That's the way it is, isn't it? When we recognize what's gone before us and the people who fought or died for it, the special events, both good and bad, the history that makes us who we are, the things that we've learned and the things we regret, the things that we cherish, the things that we think are outstanding, they all blend together in that wonderful fabric of history. We can't change it, we can't go back to it, but we can truly use it. I know it's a familiar theme with me, but I like to hold on to it. You know, as we're reminded, as Moses in the latter days of his life reminded the Israelites, remember, he said, remember, Deuteronomy 32:7, remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask your father, and he will show you. Your elders, and they will tell you. We should never truly let go of the past. Yes, we shouldn't let it hold us back, but we should know what it was and the shaping values that it gives to us. Our history of people and family, of events that turned us into what we are and helped to give us the opportunities that we have. There's sometimes we look back and we want to just do away with it, change it, rewrite it. We can't. It is what it is. It was what it was, as I say. But let's hold on to what we find there that builds for the future. It's interesting that when Joshua led the Israelites across that Jordan River before they began to take on the land they called the Promised Land, he instructed that a man from each of the family tribes pick up a large stone from the river, carry it out to the other side. Then when they camped, they built a monument out of those stones. And when the years would go by and the children might ask in the future, what do these stones mean? Then they could say, here's how the Lord led us here. Monuments of the past help build for the present and the future. I think that's what my grandmother was showing us on that day when she showed where my grandfather's family had originally settled in the land. Great place, great memories, and they make a great future. Remember the days of old. Hey, I'm glad you were with me today. I hope it's a great day with great memories and a great future. We'll share some more things a little further down the road.